This is the all-new 2026 Jeep Cherokee, and good news, it's no longer unfortunate looking like the last generation model. It is, however, up against some heavy-hitting competition like the all-new RAV4 and CR-V. Did Jeep do enough to differentiate itself from the other cars in the category? Well, that's what we're going to find out today by going over all the features inside and out. We'll try and throw a bike in the back to see if this Cherokee can do Jeep things. And last but not least, we'll take it out on the road to see what it's like to drive. Everyone rejoice because the new Cherokee looks so much better than the last generation model. I talked to Jeep's design engineers and they said they were taking inspiration from the old XJ Cherokee, which is a very big deal car in the automotive space. People hold that thing on a high pedestal. Now, do I see much of it in here? Not a ton. It is certainly boxier than the last generation model, which is something that the XJ was. And I guess you could say maybe these headlights are a bit inspired by it as well. Either way, it's a pretty good looking vehicle, even here in a relatively boring color that they call steel blue. I would call silver. But what do you guys think? Should Jeep even be remotely comparing this to the old XJ? Leave me a comment down below. No, maybe you can make some comparisons to the XJ with the X-Tier. You certainly can't make any under the hood. That old car, the XJ, had a just bulletproof 6-cylinder NA that ran forever. This is very different, much more modern, 1.6 liter turbo, hybridized 4-cylinder. This thing makes 210 horsepower and 230 pound-feet of torque. But yeah, the technology is completely different in this thing. And you get a hybrid regardless of what trim you get with the Cherokee. It's just one engine option. Now this does have, quote, 4x4, although it's not exactly a traditional 4x4 unit, a little more similar to an all-wheel drive system than a 4x4 system. But you know what? The big advantage here, of course, is fuel economy. This gets 39 city, 35 highway for a combine of 37 miles to the gallon. And that's something that the XJ cannot even remotely touch. While the exterior didn't have many different features for the Limited, the interior is where you start to see some of those things come into play, like a power liftgate in the rear, a wireless phone charger that actually works really well. A lot of the ones I use in the industry, they're just a flat pad and the phone goes everywhere, it doesn't charge, it's useless. But this one actually holds your phone in and works quite well. I'm really happy with this. I've seen this in Ram products and other Stellantis products, and it does a good job. So props to Jeep for having an off-road vehicle that actually works with your wireless phone charger. You're getting a heated steering wheel and also leatherette seats. So, you know, compared to the base seats, which are a cloth material. Now, let's start and talk about the design in here. It's relatively simple, pretty decent, relatively well put together. The materials are okay for the price point, nothing crazy. But this infotainment is a bit strange. I mean, number one, it's at a strange angle, and I assume they did that to try and reduce glare, but other manufacturers have the screen pointed directly at you and there's no glare. So I'm not exactly sure why they did that. Not the end of the world, but what I really don't like here are these HVAC controls. The ability to adjust your temperature up and down, put the AC on, is handled with this sort of strange, it's just a black plastic panel with not different buttons that kind of like rocks back and forth and does give you sort of capacitive feedback, but it's not something that you can use without looking at while you're driving. And it's just a bit weird. I mean, obviously it's going to get smudges all over it because it's black plastic, and sometimes you have to go into the screen to adjust the climate control things that you want to do. There are buttons here on the left for your heated seats and your heated steering wheel, but it's just like, they're not actual buttons. They're like these weird capacitive buttons that I just wish were buttons. So every other vehicle pretty much in this class does this better. The CR-V, the RAV4 have way better infotainment and way better HVAC controls. So that is a bit of a bummer. I'm not a big fan of that. The other thing I'm not a big fan of here are these doors. So there's no traditional door handle to get out. You have these little actuators. You just like press this button. Now there is a manual override over here, which is something that you wouldn't use. It's not very easy to get to. And yeah, it's a strange setup in here. I don't know why they did that. Probably not a big issue for the first buyer, but maybe the third or fourth buyer, that's probably gonna break at some point. So I'm not sure why we have a problem with just traditional handles at this point, but that's where we are. a giant rimmed steering wheel, and it's flat top, flat bottom, flat sides-ish. It's sort of an octagon. BMW M cars are known for having huge, thick steering wheels, and this thing is on another level. It's actually quite strange. But you do get physical buttons on the steering wheel to adjust your cruise control and your adaptive cruise control, and other menu structures where you can actually adjust things that are happening in your gauge cluster, which of course is now digital. So this has mud, sand, auto, sport mode, which probably realistically doesn't do a lot, but we'll have to see out on the drive. This is, after all, a more all-wheel drive 4x4 system, not really a traditional 4x4 system. Either way, let's talk seats before we kind of move on here. Pretty good seats. They are leatherette, as I mentioned. They are heated, they are not cooled, and they are electronically adjustable, and they have lumbar support, which I really like. And I'm actually really impressed by the back seats. I have a good amount of room there at 6'1", headroom and leg room, so you can put full-grown adults back there without much of a problem. The only thing that this thing really lacks that I would really hope for the price point and compared to the competition is the 360-degree camera. There is none here. You have, of course, a regular backup camera because that's mandated by the government, but most vehicles have a sort of top-down view camera, and it just helps with parking. So something I wish that this vehicle has. All right, we've talked enough about the interior. Let's try and throw a bike in the back to see how usable this Jeep is.
Now keep in mind, out of all the SUVs in this class that I've tested, the RAV4 is the only one that can fit this extra large frame mountain bike. That is, until today. Most of the other competing SUVs have too narrow of an opening to fit bulky items like this, but the new Cherokee has just enough space for me to wiggle my bike in there. I'm certainly glad it passed the bike test, but I would hope so considering the Jeep is bigger in every external dimension than the RAV4. As always, if you enjoy this bike test and the rest of the content, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button so you don't miss future videos.
Time to go for a ride in the Cherokee, and we're going to be whisked away. But first, I have to turn this knob to put it into drive. That's something I talked about on the interior, but I would prefer a stock or even the buttons in the CR-V that you just press the drive button and it goes, because you get used to it and you don't have to look at it. This one I tend to have to look at to scroll. I haven't gotten used to it, so I'm not the biggest fan of that, but it's by no means a deal breaker, because what I do like about this vehicle is how refined it is, particularly for its class. This is actually really quiet on pretty much all driving situations, particularly at high speeds on the highway. There's not a lot of road noise at all. There's not a lot of wind noise, which is actually pretty surprising given how boxy this thing is. So I'm actually quite impressed by that, the level of refinement that Jeep has incorporated in their latest generation of vehicle. Now, beyond just the noise, and actually even the engine, let me demonstrate that real quick here. We'll get on this engine. Like, yeah, you hear it, but it doesn't dominate the experience. Like, some cars sound just like a weed eater and you hear so much of the engine, but this is really well insulated experience. And the other part that's insulated is the suspension. The suspension is excellent. In fact, I think it might be the best in class that I've driven amongst the certainly the RAV4, the CR-V, the Tucson. This thing is excellent, soaks up bumps so well. I love that RAV4, and I just got out of it 2 weeks ago, so if you haven't seen that video, you should definitely go look at it because it's in this class of vehicle. And while that suspension wasn't bad, I was pretty unimpressed given the fact that the RAV4 is the best-selling vehicle in its class, but the suspension is pretty basic. It doesn't soak up bumps as well as this. It's not set up as soft as this, but just because it's soft doesn't mean that it can't handle a road like this. By no means is this a sports car, but it soaks up bumps so well. And this to me is kind of the perfect suspension for this class of vehicle. Something that, look, you're driving on a daily basis. Maybe you might try and drive to a trailhead or something that is a dirt road. You're not necessarily going off-road.
this suspension is set up perfect for that. So really impressed by the suspension in this vehicle. Stellantis, Jeep has done an excellent job. What I will say is a bit odd though, and as we kind of pull on the suspension and handling aspect, is the steering. It's a bit nervous, particularly on the highway when you're going straight. So what they've done here is they have like an aggressive turn in when you turn the wheel just slightly off center. It's turning these wheels, the front wheels, more than just like a linear amount. So it's a bit darty. And look, on a sports car, that would be a good thing, right? Because you want the car to be like really responsive. But this is not a sports car, and it just makes for a sort of strange and nervous driving experience, particularly, like I said, at speed on the highway. It doesn't just settle into going straight and, knocking down miles. It's just like you feel like you're kind of always making these constant corrections. So that's a bit of an odd choice to me. It does make it, I guess, like pretty responsive on a road like this. So that's nice, but I don't think that's necessarily what Jeep was intending to do, right, with a vehicle like this. But either way, it does handle well. It's just a bit odd how aggressive the turn-in is of this vehicle. Now, the engine calibration and the engine transmission combo itself, let's talk about that. Not good throttle response. I think that's this powertrain is pretty decent, but the throttle response is lacking. And unfortunately, you have a couple factors against you, because this is essentially a CVT transmission, which does not have the best response in any CVT, regardless of who makes them. But then you also have a turbo, a 1.6 liter turbo, so a low displacement engine with a turbo. So then you have to wait for that turbo to spool. So you put your foot down, and there's just a big lag between anything happening. Now, you get a little bit of electric assist there, but compared to the other cars in this category, which have a larger engine, most of them have a larger engine, even if not turbocharged, the power is a little more immediate in those. Not immediate by any means, but better than this. Outside of that, it's definitely slower than the new RAV4. The RAV4 is definitely quicker than this. I would say it's adequately powered. I don't find myself like I am in some Subarus where it's like, this is dangerously slow. The Subarus that are not hybrid and just naturally aspirated 2 liters, oh my gosh, up here at elevation are so slow, dangerously slow. This is not that. So it's not bad by any means. And I do like the hybrid aspect because you're getting great fuel economy and it's extremely smooth. Like, going back to the refinement thing, when this thing is just putting around in a parking lot at low speed, it's in electric only mode, so the engine isn't even on. I mean, there's a lot of situations where it can just cut the engine out. In fact, I don't even think the engine's on right now. I'm in regen mode. All right, engine kicks on when I put my foot down. So it's a refined experience, but yeah, the calibration is actually pretty decent. I'm surprised. Toyota, Honda have been doing hybrids for a long time, and it's not a surprise for them to get the calibration right in terms of when I put my foot on the brake, how much is it regenerating, how natural does that feel, transitioning from the gas motor to the electric motor, et cetera, et cetera. Jeep hasn't been doing that nearly as long, but this is actually pretty well sorted. So the calibration aspect is just fine. It's just the response and or lack thereof response from the motor and transmission that is a bit of a bummer. So let's sum this up. Who buys this vehicle? Well, look, I think the biggest thing that Jeep has going for it, and a lot of reason that people buy Jeeps, is because they like the way it looks, right? And I do think this is a good looking vehicle, and it's way better looking than the previous Cherokee. In fact, this to me just looks like a smaller version of the Grand Cherokee, which kind of makes sense because it's just the Cherokee, not the Grand Cherokee.
And that's, to me, what it always should have been, and now it's more in line with that, because that's a great looking vehicle, and I think this is a good looking vehicle. So if you like the way it looks, I could see that. This is, some of these shortcomings that I've mentioned are not, you know, total deal breakers. They're just things that you should be aware of. Like, frankly, the RAV4 does some of this stuff better. This has a great suspension though. So if you're someone who values a good ride, and maybe you live in rough road area, maybe you live in a like where you drive dirt roads all the time, this is definitely going to handle those better than a RAV4, because that RAV4 suspension was not my favorite thing. So, you know, those are the two major reasons that I could see buying this. And then also keep in mind, you know, it's hybrid is standard. Not every one of these cars in this class have hybrid as standard. Hell, the Volkswagen equivalent doesn't even have an hybrid. They don't even have an hybrid. So, you know, that's something to keep in mind. So, have they done a disservice comparing this to the XJ? You know, they've been real cheeky with the styling and doing that. Like, this has absolutely nothing to do with the XJ. It doesn't drive anything like an XJ between the engine, transmission. You know, it's not even close. But this is a much more modern vehicle. And I think that's ultimately what people want. Like a daily driver that you could drive to a trailhead on. It doesn't have any more ground clearance than those other cars, so you could absolutely drive to the trailhead in those other cars too. I just think this might be a little more comfortable in doing so on a dirt road. So that's where I'll leave it at. This is a good vehicle. It's just in a tough class, and I think you got to really like the way it looks in order to be a buyer of the new Cherokee. So what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. If you made it this far in the video, thank you very much. Consider hitting that like and subscribe button, and I'll look forward to seeing you guys on the next one.